it doesn't take long to realize that demographic segmentation, I used to say it wasn't very useful. I might even say that it's actually more dangerous than that. Like, if it just wasn't useful, that would be okay. I would actually say it's actually dangerous. Because, I mean, let's start at a very, very high level here. Like, here's a bunch of demographic statements. All French people are rude. All Essex people are failed DJs. That one is actually true. All Scottish people are tight with money, right? My mum and dad are Scottish, right? These are perfectly good demographic statements. Because what we've done, and you can see the logical fallacy, right? What you basically do is you get a group of people, you connect them together by a network of identity that none of them would themselves opt in for if you gave them the chance. It's like, get anyone to describe themselves and just notice that they will not use demographic words. Nobody says, I'm a 38-year-old male, low net worth individual living in, do you know what I mean, right? Or unless they're totally mental, right? Then in that case, you should get out of that room. But it's like, we've got a serious problem here. Like, you speak to any human being and you listen to how they define themselves. And then you speak to any brand and you listen to how they define their audience. And those two things are going in totally opposite directions. Now, in the old days, ye olden days, even 5 years ago, that was like, but now it's actually becoming a serious problem because we are, in the end, what is strategy? Strategy is about, my favorite definition of strategy is the discovery of invisible power, right? When you discover, oh, hang on a minute, I've got this one thing or this other thing that I can do that my enemy can't do. That's strategy. That's like David and Goliath, right? He realizes he can use the slingshot. Brilliant. But the point is, like, if our strategic decisions, and I'm not just talking about marketing decisions, I'm talking about like new products, I'm talking about employee branding, anything. As a brand, if we're sitting in boardrooms defining our potential audience of consumers, employees, anything, in gross, crassly broad terms that they themselves would never, ever agree to, and that at best give us a like almost like, I remember learning the word for poltergeist in German, basically means a being that you cannot land hands on, right? So it's a poltergeist. So what you end up doing is you end up creating this poltergeist, and then you bring in these creative minds, right? You basically give them a bag of weed and say, come up with some creative idea to land a creative punch on this ghost. And it's like, good luck. It was the coronation this weekend, and you got like Prince Charles, right? Prince Charles is 74 years old. He lives in Windsor. He's a high net worth individual with 2 children. The Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, right? He lives in Windsor. He's 74 years old. He has 2 children. He's a high net worth individual. It's like, good luck designing a new product, a piece of communication, anything that meets those 2 people in the same space psychologically. And so why I say that, and actually, because I have to have a mnemonic for everything, I actually genuinely say demos is, demographics are dangerously empty and marketing's original sin. So it's the thing that guarantees more than any other thing that every downstream strategic decision is going to be a disaster. Because once you start grouping people in ways that goes against the physics of the internet, right? It goes perfectly with what the advertising systems allow you to do. But that's not the internet. The advertising systems it's like, I know this sounds strange, but I almost feel like I have to sit with CMOs and say, okay, here's a book for 2-year-olds. The cat is in the box, right? The cat is on the chair. It's that basic, right? You're like, do you understand the difference between being in and on? Right? It's like 2-year-old stuff, right? But literally, I'm sitting there, CMOs are like, right, so we're not in the internet. No, you're interrupting the internet. There's a button that skips our industry, right? Yeah. It goes 5, 4, 3, 2, huck off, right? Yeah, and that's what's on the internet. So basically, the point that we have about demographics is that because it's easy for us to buy demographics, but you never, and so you can always market at a demographic, but you'll never be able to market with one. And the best brands in the world have moved past advertising. They are trying, and they are succeeding, many of them, in building real communities. They are marketing with. They are marketing with communities that actually exist and are not a phantom. And so I think that's why demos are becoming more and more dangerous, because as the internet goes, as the long tail of the internet gets longer, right? There are Discord servers now. I think somebody told me there's 1,700 Discord servers with over 1.8 million people on them, dedicated purely to vampire fiction, right? So that's some niche stuff, right? But then you go, well, hang on, that's pretty niche. But then you go, well, are there any billion-dollar brands that have been built on top of that very niche thing? And then you go, well, Twilight, right? So you start realizing, and there's many more, right? You start realizing that these communities, these networks that are forming naturally, we don't have to coalesce them or ask them to meet. They're doing it. And so by going after demographics, we're ignoring the real opportunity. And so that's why I think it's gone from being like suboptimal to being flat out dangerous. And the final thing I'll say is that this is controversial. If it's true that the first principles of digital are the internet is an interconnected set of networks, those networks are passion and community-based, then this is a controversial thing to say. If you don't obsess about being conscious of those networks, strategically finding the networks that you think you can advertise with, and thinking about activating networks, you are not digital. And I don't care if your title is Chief Digital Officer. If you think that being digital is buying ads on this internet, you fundamentally don't understand what digital is. And this is where we are right now. We have a situation where we have so many brands pouring their energy, their time, and their money into this black hole of diminishing marginal returns. And meanwhile, the smallest tweak away from demographics, would get them into a totally different category of growth.